Hello everybody, welcome back to Norwich Talk for another video. In today's video we're going to be chatting a bit about Todd Cantwell and answering the question that I'm going to be asking myself, which is that should Norwich City look to sell Todd Cantwell in this summer transfer window? This video was inspired by Michael Bailey in terms of the fact that I've literally just watched his live stream. I was sort of catching up on the latest Norwich City media, and he spoke a little bit about Todd Cantwell and why he excluded him from his strongest Norwich City 11, which I think is very interesting, and I do agree with it, but it's very interesting in the fact that Todd Cantwell last season was really important in terms of goal scoring for Norwich City. He contributed to a lot of Norwich's goals. I think he only scored 6 or 7, but at the same time, in terms of percentages, that's quite a high return considering the amount of goals that Norwich City actually scored last season. So I think the idea that Norwich City would look to sell such a prize asset is a very interesting one, and I've sort of wanted to make a bit of an opinion piece for a while now, because I haven't done that many for a bit for whatever reason. So I thought this is a great place to sort of jump back into the game, sort of throw my opinion out there. I'm very keen to know your thoughts, as ever, in the comments down below on this subject. But I think we'll save that after I've given my opinion, because you might agree with me, you might completely disagree with me, who knows. But before we get into it, I do just want to say, if you want to go and check out the match reaction that the Revere boys did for me, which massive thanks to them, by the way, Alfie and Billy. I asked them pretty last minute if they'd be happy to film a match reaction, because I wasn't actually able to. I was at Dereham Witton, where Dereham got through to the first qualifying round of the FA Cup, which is pretty good. But yeah, I asked them if they'd help me out, and they did. So massive thanks to that. It's also a pretty good review as well, so let's not forget that. And it's well worth the watch. I remember I was sort of sat there watching it thinking, right, these guys know what they're talking about, don't they? And it's a privilege that they were just sort of so willing to help me out on that. But yeah, I will be doing match reactions from now on. Well, for the foreseeable future, of course, because this is sort of my YouTube channel, isn't it? But I think it was just mainly because I couldn't actually watch the game yesterday. But that said, we shall crack on with the video, which is answering the question, should Norwich City look to sell Todd Cantwell? Now, I think an important thing to do for this video is to give a little bit of context in terms of my opinion now, what my opinion was before last season on Todd Cantwell. Now, I'm sure we all remember the pre-season before the 1920 season kicked off. Todd Cantwell was good. And Daniel Farke sort of did that thing where if someone has a good pre-season, they play, which I think is brilliant. I think that's the way football should be played and the way players should be developed, which again, I sort of say this quite often, is quite an obvious thing to say, but it's worth remembering. And he played last season. He was very, very good. I'd say he set the league alight. I think he did from a Norwich City perspective, but in the grand scheme of things, he probably didn't. But again, that said, he was one of sort of the better younger English players within the division. He proved himself to be very technically able, which surprised me. I won't lie to you. I was full of praise for him, but I didn't expect him to do as well as he did. And also the fact that he's a young lad from Dereham, from Norfolk, playing for Norwich City, which is just sort of admirable, really. And it's that nice little story, that inspirational story for sort of younger fans, just anyone in general to be inspired by. But yeah, he had a great story last season, didn't he? And as I said, I think you look at him as a player, he's definitely, I think he wants to be a number 10 for sure, but at the same time, he had all of his success out on the left. Now, in terms of where he played on the left, I think that's quite common in football nowadays. You see sort of managers play that sort of central or naturally central player out on the sort of outside of the pitch. They can come inside and do all their bits and bobs and whatever, and that worked well for Todd Cantwell. We've seen it at Norwich City before, haven't we? And as I said, it's a fairly common thing in the game, which I think is good. It's good for home games and in games where you're expected to sort of dominate possession, but at the same time, this is, I'll mention this a little bit later in the video. I think Norwich City are going to maybe play a little bit differently, maybe tweak it a little bit in terms of Cantwell specifically, when you look at sort of the signings that Norwich City have made. But yeah, that's my context on my thoughts on Todd Cantwell up to now, to be honest with you. And as I said, this video was inspired by Michael Bailey in terms of his opinion. Now, his opinion was that you can't really have, in a strongest Norwich City 11, you can't really have Cantwell and Buendia in the same team, because obviously Emi Buendia is going to be in it, isn't he? And he also in that video sort of settled some rumours that Emi Buendia would be looking to move away, which is sort of a breath of, or a massive sigh of relief from me and every single Norwich City fan, because Emi Buendia is just different gravy, isn't he? He's a really, really top player. And he made the interesting point that when you've not got pace on one wing, you sort of need it on the other. And as I said earlier, it's a must, and I've made that clear on this channel that you need to have pace on at least one of the wings. And I think I said in a podcast that I want both. I think Norwich City haven't had that for a long time. I want pace down both wings. You also want that technical ability, but at the same time, I think I've maybe prioritised pace, because I know Daniel Farke can coach players into becoming technically able. You look at a player like Alex Tettey now, I know he's not a pacey winger, but it's this idea that you can turn sort of a player into a technically able, I'm not going to say very, very good, but able player. And I want the pace on either side, which sort of is my point in short. But as I said, that is what sort of turned my attention to this question. Now, if you look at Norwich City's transfer business, which is one of the main reasons I've made this video and the main reasons I think Norwich City will sell Todd Cantwell, we brought in Plaheta, sorry. I've been nailing that pronunciation for so long, I've just sort of messed it up almost there. But we've got Onel Hernandez and Przemysław Plaheta down the left. So I think that automatically says that he probably wouldn't get in down the left. Onel Hernandez, I think, is going to be a very, very big player for Norwich this season. You look down the right belongs to Emi Buendia. Definitely, there's no question about that, is there? And I think Lucas Rupp is also a contender when Buendia is injured and when maybe Daniel Farke wants to play something a little bit differently. And when I say different, I mean more defensively. And down the middle, we've now got Kieran Dowell, Marco Stiepermann and Danel Sinani, 2 extra signings. And you look at a player like Kieran Dowell, you think he'll definitely be getting game time, because again, he's this young English prospect who's known. It's fairly decent at a championship level. He's got plenty of experience for such a young lad as well. And then a player like Danel Sinani, who everyone seems to be getting hyped up about. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, I don't know why. I understand why, sort of this unknown element, which is very exciting when it comes to Norwich City. He's got a proven goal scoring record in Europe. So he's a very, very exciting player. And I do think he'll be a number 10 for Norwich. He said himself that he's naturally a number 10. And I think he was brought to the attention of Norwich because he played up front, scored a few goals. But I do think he'll naturally be a 10. So you look at that. That's 3 10 options for Norwich. That's one down the right, which is Buendia. Different ball game, isn't it? So you just sort of naturally then ask the question, where is he actually going to fit into the system? And going off the assumption that Emi Buendia stays at Norwich, Emi Buendia is going to play every game this season, bar no attitude problems, but I don't think that will happen again. I think lessons have been learned from previous occasions. Definitely, you look at last season when he got dropped from the team. I don't think that was because of attitude, but that was just genuinely him giving the ball away. He then came back and looked a whole different player, didn't he? And when I say that, he looked much, much more better suited to sort of football, the Premier League, whatever. I don't really know why I'm saying it like that, but he looked a better player. Didn't he, for sure? So the question then is, where is Todd Cantwell going to fit into this system? Because you then need pace to balance it. On the left, Onel Hernandez is going to be a very important player for Norwich this season. Just a quick comment on Hernandez as well. I looked at the highlights of yesterday's game. His shooting looks to have definitely improved, and I think you sort of noticed that progression. So Hernandez again is strengthening himself as a player. His shooting's improving. So the question is, where does Cantwell fit into this? Which is, I don't think he does. The signing of Plaheta sort of to bring contention to Onel Hernandez down the left, and that sort of plan B, that injection of pace into a game, says to me that I don't think Todd Cantwell really fits into the way Daniel Farke will want to play in terms of this idea of system and personnel. Now, I know he obviously played yesterday, and I've read a few sort of polarised tweets in terms of this idea that he wasn't that good. I've seen a few saying he was, so I can't really base it off yesterday. But the main question is, I just don't think he fits into this sort of massive squad that Norwich City have assembled at the moment. Which I think is understandable. There's another question of, does he suit the Championship? Is he physically able? I remember sort of Stuart Hodge on this channel, I think it was on a podcast, he basically said that he's a very technical player, definitely, but sort of does he have the physicality to put up with the Championship? Now, an interesting player to compare him to is Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish went down with Aston Villa. He's their local lad, isn't he? A bit like Todd Cantwell. I think he played a couple of games in the Premier League, nowhere near sort of the reputation he's had set for himself in the Premier League before getting relegated that Todd Cantwell has set. But he went down to the Championship, was this very sort of technical player, and he smashed it, didn't he? For as annoying as I think everyone finds him, he's a very, very good footballer. There's no sort of hiding from that. And he sort of made a career of sort of buying fouls. I say made a career, but he sort of specialised in buying fouls and sort of winning free kicks all over the pitch constantly, which could be what Todd Cantwell does. I don't think he would, but that's just an example to sort of balance the scale in terms of would he suit the Championship. I think if you compare him to a Grealish, they're very similar in terms of they love the ball at their feet, they love to take players on with their sort of precise dribbling. They don't really do these sort of fancy flicks and tricks, the Neymar tricks I call them. They're very good dribblers. And I think to compare him to Jack Grealish is definitely a better footballer, there's no doubt about that, but that's because he's got bags more experience. Todd Cantwell could reach them levels. Will he? I don't know. But I think Grealish is the example to sort of balance the scale. But yeah, my overall argument is you look at the personnel now. Now, it's annoying because it is sort of caveated by the fact he played yesterday. But at the same time, I want to be persistent in the fact that I just don't think he really fits in at Norwich at the moment, which it's not a criticism, believe me. I'm not saying it's because he's not good enough. I'm saying it's because Norwich City, the Championship's a whole different ball game to the Premier League, isn't it? You can get away with not being as technically able in the Championship, as is evident. There's no hiding from that. Not a criticism of the league at all. But I just don't think he fits in at Norwich City, and I feel like I've given enough reason as to why I don't think he fits in. Now, in terms of actually selling him, I would probably say that Norwich would accept anything north of £15 million. My gut sort of feeling is that Norwich City will probably sell him between 15 and 25 million pounds, whether that's an initial 15 with add-ons to 20 to 25, who knows. We know Stuart Webber loves an add-on. He's like me playing FM. Got to get add-ons in there because they just are a must. It's very sensible business from Stuart Webber, isn't it? But yeah, I think he is more valuable to Norwich City than what Jamal Lewis was. So I think we'd get more than what we got for Jamal Lewis, which I think is a reported initial 13 to 14 million pounds, which will have add-ons. As I said, Stuart Webber loves to put add-ons. But my final question is, who's going to want to buy him? Now, I'm not asking that in terms of, who's going to want to buy him? No one's going to want to buy him. I mean, literally, I don't really know what team will want to buy him. I know he's an Arsenal fan, so maybe he's holding a candle out or a torch out for Arsenal to come and buy him. But I don't really know what sort of team would buy him, in fact, and would pay that sort of money for him, because at the same time as the fact that he is this very good, young, promising player, he is also a part of the team who carries the baggage of having Norwich City's worst season ever, I think it is, maybe, or if not, for a very, very long time. These players and them players who were a part of that team will always carry that baggage whilst they're at Norwich until they get bought, that they were a part of that season, definitely. I do think that if someone was to buy him or to be interested in him, they'd look past that, but to sort of, again, balance the scale, he is a part of that team, let's not forget that. But yeah, my question there, who's going to buy him, is more sort of for you in the comments. I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I'm not sort of a full-time journalist. I can't just sort of think of an answer on the spot like that. So I'm going to put the question to you in the comments down below. I'm very interested to know who you think would be interested in buying him, who you think would realistically buy him, because you can sometimes, they're two very different elements, aren't they? Who will genuinely go out there and spend £15 million on him, £20 million on him, and who would just sort of be interested and maybe put an inquiry in. But they're all my thoughts on Todd Cantwell. I do think Norwich City should sell him because I think he'd be a good bit of money in the bank for further investment. And I think for him, in terms of progressing as a footballer, for as much as I'd love to see him continue to get coached under Daniel Farke, because I think he would still do a fantastic job at coaching, because he's a fantastic coach. Whatever you think of Daniel Farke, he's a fantastic man manager, he's a fantastic player developer, I think is what I keep calling him. But I think for the good of his career, I think a Premier League move would suit him, whether that's sort of a Crystal Palace, who maybe don't have aspirations to get into, say, Europe or something, or say a top 6 team like Leicester. I think Leicester were reportedly interested in him for a while, would come in from, who knows, but I think a move to the Premier League would suit him. I think it would suit all parties. Finances for Norwich, another player off the books, because we've got a 33-man squad, I think 33 after Jamal Lewis left, yeah. But it's a very interesting question to ask. There's no right answer. There's never a right answer in football in terms of opinions. I mean, that's just something you can apply to life. There's never a right answer. You're always going to upset someone as well. But as I say in every video, I'm very keen to know your thoughts in the comments down below on Todd Cantwell, whether Norwich City should sell him or not. I think we should. Very keen to know your thoughts and if we should or not. I've got a podcast coming out soon, I think Monday, Tuesday, one of them 2 days, where me, Alfie from the Revere End podcast, and Hodgie have a sit down and we sort of rate Norwich City's transfer business so far, although I'm pretty sure it's done, out of 10, which is always an interesting thing to do. I don't like putting numbers on things, but we did nonetheless nonetheless, so you've got that to look forward to. A big thank you to everyone who's been watching the podcast lately, especially the Ben Bloom one. The numbers have sort of done really well lately, and it's really pleasing to see, and the watch time has been sublime as well. So a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel at the moment and watching the videos. Big thank you to everyone who comments, likes, etc. If you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, I'll be very grateful. I'll be more grateful if you'd comment. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, as ever. So until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.